Let's see if you think this is a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Okay. Once Upon a Time. Very fitting name. It's 1 and a green for an instant. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Interesting. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land from among them, put it to your hand, put the rest on the bottom in any order. Or in a random order, excuse me. I don't know if that matters. Does Magic have stuff that interacts with, like, the bottom of decks?
Does it have things that interact with the bottom of decks?
Because, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't. We have some cards that, like, bottom cards, but there's not really... we have one card that can flip the deck upside down, but that's, like, the only card that, like, really interacts with, like, the bottom of the deck.
Let's go with engagement bait. Everybody, post the name of a card that interacts with the bottom of the deck. I will say this is a very niche thing and not usually a competitively... It's just not a competitive thing.
I was just asking if there's a thing where
players...
it's like... If you put something on the bottom and then there's a card like, oh, draw the bottom card of your deck or something like that. I was just curious if that existed.
Yeah.
I think Hearthstone, from doing this stuff with Rare, and I think he showed me stuff that like interacts like that. But that's a digital game, so I think it's a lot different. Okay. The first spell... So the line of text, the first spell you've cast this game is really interesting. I wish Yu-Gi-Oh! Would kind of do stuff like this, because I think there'd be a lot of really cool stuff they could do with that mechanic, especially because like our games are so much shorter turn-wise that it would be interesting having, I don't know. I mean, going first already is already like really good. So maybe that'd be a bad thing, but I think it's an interesting design space to explore. And especially in your game, because it's like your stuff actually has costs. So I don't know how they would like guardrail it in our game, but like I've seen things before where it's like the first thing you have to do during your main phase. I think there's a card I played, what is it? It's like a black enchantment that it's like at the beginning of your main phase, you can like make a treasure and like play a guy or something.
I think you're thinking of Black Market Connections.
Yes, that's the card. Yeah. I think I played that in one of our Commander games. And like, that's not exactly this, but it's like similar, right? So it's just, I think it's like an interesting design space. Look at the top 5, reveal a creature or land, put it to your hand, put the rest on the bottom. I mean, that's like fine if that's free. It guarantees you, I wouldn't say guarantees, but it helps you if you're like land light or if you're looking for like a particular creature. I feel like this is bait. I feel like you would think that I don't think this card's like very good, and then you're going to say this card got banned for some reason, which is kind of crazy to think.
Would he do such a thing?
Yes, you would. How is this abuse? Look at the top 5, creature or land, put it into your hand, and the rest. It just puts it in your hand. It doesn't even put it into play. This one's tough. I'm trying to think like why this would be. Like how can you abuse this?
Maybe I think that you think it would be totally fine because of Yu-Gi-Oh! So you're going to try to find something wrong with it. So you're going to say like, it got banned.
Okay,
because
we have cards that I haven't shown you yet that do something similar to this. And I think, ironically, it might have to be the first thing you do in a turn. I forget. I might be getting confused with a different card. But anyway, we have cards that are similar to this. And I believe they've gotten restricted, some of them, but it's a little bit different in our game just because, like, I feel like the power level of our game is, like, so high. Where, like, in your game, you actually still have to pay for the costs of stuff. Like, you might guarantee you get an extra land or a particular land or a particular creature or something like that, but it's like you can't play it for, like, maybe a turn or two. But it's like this added layer of consistency, like, to your guys'... Like, that's the thing. Like, we talked about this in the video you and I recently did, where it's like, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, the decks are so consistent because, like, everything tutors for a tutor for a tutor that, like, we still play cards like this because they're still good, but we can actually, like, capitalize on it immediately, where this one's... Wow, this is so hard. I'm trying to think. Okay, like, the first one's obviously really good. And then you have multiple... If you're playing 4 of this in a deck, you're playing this on later turns. I guess you're still kind of, like, guaranteeing you get, like, the right creature you're looking for or the right land. Or, like, just any land if you're, like, land light. So you go like 5 deep. And it's an instant. So you could like do it on your opponent's like end step and then like refresh your mana that way. There's no way this got banned. Like, surely. Why are you showing me this, though? God, you're messing with me on this one.
Really?
My head is like swirling. I'm trying to figure out like what something you may have missed. I know you're waiting to just like, you're itching to say it again.
It's a good start to this video.
Yeah. I feel like you're baiting me with this, and like this did get banned, but I don't think this is very good. But like we've had cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that have been restricted for basically being this like almost exact effect. So like I could see it, but banned?
Can he pull the trigger?
I'm going to go with no. And I think this is bait and this is probably banned, but I'm really curious to know why this card is banned, if that's the case. But I'm going to go with no. I can't see it.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. I was actually surprised I hadn't shown you this one too, because I felt like this would feel like a Yu-Gi-Oh card, both because of the kind of free thing and the way that consistency is so important to
like
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I said, we have cards that are almost like exactly like this that I haven't shown you yet. So yeah, that's interesting.
Right. So Once Upon a Time is really, in many ways, at least in this era, like the first of its kind in terms of a card that you can play for free if it's your first spell of the game.
Sure.
And it lets you dig those 5 cards deep to find that piece so that your opening turns are what you need them to be. That sounds like a pretty normal thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! In Magic, getting to do that for free is very unheard of.
Okay.
It was very powerful in the time. And what got it banned probably...
Take it banned. That's crazy.
Yep,
That's crazy.
Sure did. In fact, it got banned as quickly as one of the most powerful Magic cards ever. It got banned in the same announcement as Oko Thief of Crowns. And it came out in the same set as Oko Thief of Crowns. It was banned just as fast as Oko, which is kind of crazy.
What?
Yeah, that's right. It lasted about 6 weeks. And Oko and this card were banned together.
So, okay, help me understand why. Like, is it just
Sure.
the added consistency is just that good for your game comparatively?
Oddly, what got Once Upon a Time banned might be the fact that it's green. That might be it. I'll read you exactly from the announcement in a moment.
Oh, that's right. You guys actually say why they banned cards. I forgot.
I'm going to give you a little context of why I say that. Because not only does Wizards reference it, but first I have to explain a little bit about how Standard used to work.
Okay.
When a Standard block rotated with the fall set, of which Eldraine was one of them, only 5 sets would be legal in Standard. And this would lead to some very oddly lopsided formats in some cases, especially with regards to lands. Okay. If certain lands were relied upon, because as you know, our mana base is very
sure.
the cards that are good in our mana bases are often rare, and you can only have 4 of such a land
sure.
in your deck.
Sure.
So if there were only so many good lands in the format, the ability to actually dig for those good lands in the color green and have them that much more consistency gave green such an advantage that green, if you played green, you almost always had good mana because you either would draw those good lands, the lands that produce 2 or more colors in your opening hand, or you might draw Once Upon a Time to get a much better chance of hitting them. It made green so lopsidedly better than colors that were not green that there was you had to play green. Because if you have Once Upon a Time in your deck and you can't cast Once Upon a Time, it's a dead draw later in the game. But if you have green mana to cast it, it's a great draw. So this actually led to green being a lopsided, overpowered color in the format. And it's really funny that they banned a handful of green cards like Oko Thief of Crowns and Once Upon a Time, as they say, to reduce green's dominance. In fact, the exact quote is, to address green's general dominance environments, we are choosing to remove Once Upon a Time from the environment. Alongside Oko Thief of Crowns, Once Upon a Time is one of the key reasons green has been overrepresented in the environment. It contributes to a high consistency of strong starts and provides a level of early mana fixing that other colors don't have access to. This advantage is especially important in the context of a small 5-set standard card pool with less flexible mana bases. Also, welcome to the Arena era. They didn't have this back in the day. It says Arena data indicates that without also removing Once Upon a Time, green decks would still continue to be too powerful and consistent going forward.
Interesting. So to help me understand, so they were mainly using this as a way to like fix their mana to make sure they hit like the right lands. It was like maybe if you already had the lands, you would get a creature, but it was more for the mana fixing than anything.
Yeah, you could, without like changing the density of lands in your deck, you could keep a hand that was one land in a Once Upon a Time, and it might even be missing a color that you want to have, but Once Upon a Time gives you a very high chance of getting it. There was also a card, there are also mana dorks, right? On turn one, you play a 1 mana spell that, you know, is taps for mana in the future. There were a very limited number of those in this era, and the ability to access those on turn one would lead to things like turn 2 Oko. Now they banned Oko, but of course there are plenty of other ways to maximize being 2 mana ahead of your opponent as early as turn 2. So Once Upon a Time also impacted how often you got your Gilded Goose or whatever else you wanted to do. Honestly, the consistency that you guys love in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something that they are averse to in Standard Magic. They want the experience more varied.
I think also too, coming from like, I basically just play Commander at this point. I think the lands in Commander are just like mana fixing usually isn't that big of an issue. So I think that's something I probably overlooked compared to Standard, where like the lands might not be nearly as good comparatively.
Yeah, I certainly remember the Once Upon a Time era as like a lot of people said this card would get banned very quickly, and it was so particularly demoralizing because you could tell if the opponent had Once Upon a Time because every action you took would hold priority from the very first turn of the game until they cast it. And it was just like, oh God, they're definitely going to have like the best possible start here because they get the extra looks that I don't.
So I'll steal your video here. I'll show you this card because I've probably never showed you in other context. Give this a read.
Pot of Prosperity. Did we see this in the case? I think this was in the case at the store.
It might be.
Maybe I'm. Yeah, we went to a game store for reference for those out there when I was in Vegas. It was fun.
Oh yeah, when you were out here. Yeah. Well, maybe it was in there. It could have been. Yeah, this is it's quite a decent card when you read it.
Banish 3 or 6 cards of your choice from your extra deck face down. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, any damage your opponent takes is halved. Also, excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards banished. Add 1 excavated card to your hand. Place the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. You can only activate 1 Pot of Prosperity per turn. You cannot draw cards by... how many guardrails do you need?
There's a lot of guardrails on this card. But even so, this card has been like restricted to a singular copy because unlike Once Upon a Time, this card can get any card. Right? So the fact that you can dig 6 deep into your deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! When we're already like giga consistent is actually like huge. And you're able to also just get like any degenerate card as well that might be unsearchable. This card lets you go 6 deeper in addition to the 5 card hand you open with. So it's a very similar card. And this is like what I was thinking of as I was reading this. So a lot of people want this card banned too, which is very funny because people hate when they go Prosperity for 6 and find some degenerate floodgate that just like ends the game immediately, and that's Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's our Once Upon a Time.
It's a consistency machine, yeah, and people want it banned. Okay,
yeah, people want this card banned. Yeah,
I do love that you start with so much less extra deck. That's a little spicy.
Yeah, I want to do a video with you at some point where it's like it's cards that use the extra deck as a resource, kind of like this, where it's like you get rid of them to do something else, where you're not just like playing the monsters straight from the extra deck. I might do that with you one day. Anyway, sorry to hijack your video.
Dude, every time I like try to steer it back, they're like, no, don't do that. We want to hear about
keep
those
yapping,
things.
keep yapping,
yes,
keep
please,
yapping.
Please yap. And I'm over here looking at like a list of cards in a runtime and trying to be like, what do I do? And then they get on me. It's okay. It's okay. I understand. The stories are great. We're here for it.